He was just 12 when they dragged his mother into the street and beat him until his vision blurred. His little sister screamed for help, but nobody came. That moment didn't just hurt, it forged something deep inside him. He made a promise, right there in the dirt: I will wear their uniform, not to become one of them, but to become what they fear. A man with no price, no fear, and no mercy for corruption. This is the untold African story they tried to bury. Watch till the end. No scenes, no breaks, just pure cinematic truth. Like, subscribe, and comment your country if you're watching from Africa. This is Real African Tales by Ha. Musa was born in the kind of place maps didn't name, a rusted line of tin roofs on the edge of a city that had long forgotten its poor. His mother, Auntie Binta, sold groundnuts from a faded bucket, while his older sister Fatima washed other people's clothes to put bread on their table. His father gone, either to war or to drink. Nobody knew, but what Musa did have was fire, and it burned brighter the night the police came. It started with a knock, soft, polite. Then came the boots. Doors cracked, a flashlight in the face. "Where's your mother?" someone barked. Auntie Binta tried to stand, but was slapped down so hard she hit the charcoal stove. Fatima screamed. Musa lunged a boy's body against 3 grown men. They beat him until blood filled his mouth and dragged his mother into the street in front of the neighbors. His sister begged, his voice cracked, and Musa's world fell quiet. In that silence, rage bloomed. It wasn't loud. It was steady. That night, he sat outside the clinic with a swollen jaw and made a vow. They wear those uniforms for power. One day, I'll wear mine for justice. From that day forward, Musa changed. While other boys played football in alleys, he read old newspapers. He copied laws into stolen notebooks. He carried sacks in the market for tips. At night, he studied by candlelight while his stomach growled. And when he turned 18, he walked barefoot into the police training camp. They laughed at him. He didn't care. He trained in torn shoes, ate last, slept on the floor, and every time he wanted to quit, he thought of his mother's scream and the blood on their doorstep. Years passed. Ranks rose. Musa never took a bribe, never turned away from a case. He chased corrupt officers the way they once chased him. He exposed secret deals, closed down torture chambers, and rebuilt trust between uniform and people. One day, he walked into the office of the very officer who beat him as a boy. The man looked up, older now, bloated with power. Musa dropped a file on the table, evidence of years of theft, abuse, extortion. The man stood to shout, but Musa didn't blink. He arrested him in front of the whole force. No backup, no fear. Word spread. The people began to chant his name at protests. They called him the Clean One, the son of the street commander without chains. By the time he was named commander of the National Riot Police, Musa had become more than a man. He was a symbol. But he didn't seek revenge. He brought reform. He built new academies, taught his officers to talk before they shoot, to kneel before they beat, to serve before they command. And when reporters asked him what changed him, he said one sentence: "A scream from my sister became the voice of a nation." He never married. Instead, he adopted Fatima's children and sent hundreds of street boys to school. Today, if you walk through the capital during a protest, you'll see riot officers standing calm, not because they fear punishment, but because they wear the badge of a man who bled to clean it. And at the front of every protest, you'll find Musa, silent, steady, unshakable. Not a hero born, but a leader made from pain. The streets called him commander, but Musa never walked like one. No entourage, no sirens, no swagger. He still carried the same bag from his academy days, patched 3 times. Still wore his wristwatch upside down so no one could guess what he was thinking. But now the uniform fit differently. It wasn't a dream anymore. It was armor. Musa began going into the places the police avoided: ghettos, slums, markets ruled by fear. He walked into a drug den once, unarmed, just to pull out a boy who reminded him of himself. But not everyone celebrated him. Behind shiny desks and gold-plated pens, men whispered, "He's too clean, he's too bold, he's making the rest of us look weak." They tried to block his reforms, cut his funding, spread lies. Once, they planted drugs in his cousin's house, hoping to break him. It didn't work. Musa stood at the press conference and said, "If they want to stop me, they'll have to do it in public and in uniform." His courage inspired others. Young cadets followed his style. Women joined the force in record numbers. The poor, for once, saw the police as protectors, not predators. But every rise brings enemies. One night, on his way home, Musa's convoy was ambushed. 4 masked men with rifles. Shots fired. Tires burst. His driver was hit. Musa crawled out, dragged the man to cover, and returned fire with a sidearm he hadn't drawn in years. By dawn, 2 attackers were dead. The other 2 fled. When the investigation traced the attack back to a retired general he'd exposed for corruption, the media exploded. The general denied everything. But Musa didn't retaliate. He showed up at the general's birthday party, in full dress uniform, handed him a copy of the anti-corruption bill he'd just pushed through Parliament, smiled, and walked away. The message was clear: I don't need to bury you. I'll outlive you. Weeks later, the general fled the country. Musa's legend grew, but so did the weight on his shoulders. Fatima, now a community leader herself, begged him to slow down. But Musa couldn't. If I stop, they win, he'd say. If I rest, someone else bleeds. He expanded training programs, created civilian complaint boards, and made it policy that every officer had to spend 2 weeks each year living among the people. Critics called it madness. The people called it genius. His transformation was now transforming the system itself. And yet, he never forgot the past. Every anniversary of his mother's death, he'd return to the same street, lay 3 red stones by the old shack where it all began, and sit there for hours in silence. No camera, no speech, just memory. He wasn't chasing fame, he was honoring pain, and that made him untouchable. In a world where everyone wanted a seat at the table, Musa built new tables entirely in villages, in schools, in the hearts of people who'd long stopped believing in the law. And the most remarkable part, he never raised his voice, not once. He led by presence. When riots broke out in the capital during the election crisis, people expected chaos. Instead, they saw Musa alone, walking between protest lines and police barricades, arms raised, speaking calmly. No blood was shed that day. A foreign journalist asked how he did it. Musa replied, "You don't need bullets when the people believe your badge." But not every wound was healed. There were still corrupt ranks, shadowy deals, betrayals. One of his most trusted officers was caught leaking intel. Another was bribed to frame him for misconduct. But every time, Musa didn't flinch. He faced every fire like the one he came from. Today, in his 40s, grey touching his sideburns, Musa is more than just commander. He's a myth, a movement, a mirror, showing Africa what integrity looks like in uniform. But to him, he's still just the boy who once got beat on a dirt floor and stood back up. Asterisk. Musa stood at the edge of the parade ground, rain pouring down his peaked cap, watching recruits march in perfect formation, but his mind was elsewhere. He could still hear the screams from his childhood, still feel the heat from the torch that burned through his tin roof. Decades later, with medals on his chest and the national flag behind him, that pain was still sharper than any bullet. But pain had always been his compass. It pointed him forward. When he discovered that the police payroll had been rigged for years, ghost workers, laundered salaries, fake training camps, he went straight to the press. No internal review, no backdoor negotiations. He wanted it public. He wanted war. And war came. The interior minister called him reckless. His own deputy leaked memos claiming Musa had falsified his credentials. The headlines turned. The people hesitated. Even Fatima, who had always believed in his mission, begged him to pull back, just enough to survive. But Musa didn't know how to step backward. He met every accusation with documents, every attack with discipline. When his private driver was found murdered and his apartment broken into within 72 hours, he issued one statement: "I will not blink." The nation watched, breath held. Parliament debated removing him. But when the vote came, a student protest the size of a city blocked the roads. Women held pictures of Musa beside their sons in uniform. Soldiers refused to disperse the crowd. He wasn't a commander anymore. He was a cause, and that made him dangerous. The government tried one last card. They offered him a quiet promotion into retirement. Ambassador, minister, even vice president. He refused. "I was born in the fire," he said, "and I'll die in it if that's what it takes to make the badge mean something again." So they tried something worse. They went after his sister. Fatima was arrested on false charges, embezzlement, sabotage, even conspiracy. She was dragged out of a school she built, in front of screaming children. The country erupted. Musa gave no speech, issued no threat. He simply walked into the Central Police headquarters, took off his commander's badge, placed it on the Director General's desk, and said, "Either you clean this house, or I will clean it without this badge." Then he walked out. 3 hours later, the charges against Fatima were dropped. The Director General resigned. 2 cabinet ministers fled. And by morning, the president himself went on national radio and announced full support for Musa's reforms. The tide had turned again, but Musa didn't celebrate. He returned to his mother's grave that night, kneeled beside it, and whispered, "We are not finished yet." Over the next year, he launched Africa's first civilian-led police audit bureau. He established mental health units in every division. He forced old generals into transparency hearings. And he made it law that no officer could carry a weapon without first completing 300 hours of community service. Some said he was mad. Some said he was building a legacy. But Musa wasn't interested in legacy. He was building a country he could die in without shame. At the age of 47, he refused the National Peace Award, not because he didn't deserve it, but because he said, "True peace is when no child is afraid of a uniform." And when the documentary about his life aired, the last shot showed him, in plain clothes, walking through the same market where his mother once sold groundnuts. No guards, no salute, just one old woman who looked up and said, "You made the badge honest again." And he smiled, bowed slightly, and kept walking, not as a hero, not as a martyr, but as a man who fought, bled, and endured, not to rise, but to lift everyone else with him. From pain to power, from silence to legacy, from dust to justice.